What's up, YouTube and Spotify podcasts? Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prestige Reef Dork Show. First thing I need to say, there are two very, very important things. If you've clicked on this video and you're not watching it live and you just want to know what happened to Aaron's aquarium, there will be timestamps along the bottom of the video a couple of hours after this video goes live. So you can just skip straight to that part because we're going to talk about a load of other nonsense first. And the second thing to say is, and this is actually genuinely quite important, this is a drama-free zone. This is not going into any fantastic detail about behind the scenes, all sorts of things that happened. There's no drama here at all, basically. So I'm not looking for a really detailed discussion about exactly what happened. There are a couple of things that I'll tell you about just sort of as a brief overview, but really this is about the channel, not about anything that went on behind the scenes. So I'm not interested in that. So let's crack on with the good side. So Ryan, from now and the other thing is I am Alex, aka Reef Dork, and with me as always is Ryan from the UK.
You've forgotten who I am, have you?
#1 coral selling website, prestigereef.co.uk. Ryan, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I think it's very important that we clarify that the reason that this topic was picked today, not by me, because I don't like this topic too much, but it doesn't matter. The reason that this topic was picked is because so many people ask us all the time what happened to Aaron's aquarium. And that's it. So as I said, this, well, as you said very well, this is not a place for drama. I think that he did brilliant things for the hobby. There will be thousands probably of people, probably even more than thousands of people that benefited from his channel before and still benefit to this day. Would you not agree?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Obviously, we saw each other yesterday in person, and I remember that you said that before you started your channel, you watched some of his channel, and obviously I watched his channel as well, and yeah. So
I watch his channel all the time. When I first started watching it, I wasn't really that into it. But the more I kind of got to know him, know what his personality was like, the more I watched it. So, and I just found him, he was wicked. Anyway, but we'll get into that because that's a small part of the stream. And what we're going to do start with is we're going to talk about the last week in reefing. And actually, I don't have an awful lot to talk about, Ryan. I know, yeah. Let's skip on to Coral of the Week. But what I found is at the moment, so I'm into when it comes to the summer, everything goes a little bit quiet.
Yeah.
And so the hobby goes quiet. People go outside. People go on holiday. They go away with their kids. All these sorts of things. So everything goes a little bit hush, and you don't get so much interest in the hobby generally. Even a hobby interest in videos, all those sorts of things, basically everything. But it goes flat, and that makes me go a bit flat as well. I still go to shops every week, so I still go looking for corals and all these sorts of things. Yeah. But I found myself not really doing an awful lot. Just bought a couple of corals here and there lately, and just kind of just being a bit like, yeah, cool. I feel like I'm ticking over.
Well, this is the same for everyone, or most people in the hobby through the summer. See, I don't really understand fully why this happens because you still have to maintain your tank every day. Well, yeah, every day through the entire summer. So what is it that makes people less interested all of a sudden? Is it because they're going out and doing other things? Is it because they would rather spend their money, I don't know, going and to what I think of a fun fair is my first thought, but you know what I mean. Would they rather spend their money going to do something outside rather than something inside?
And I think that's exactly it. So a lot of people have families, like small kids or whatever, or even older kids. They'll have their time off school, so they'll want to go and hang out with their kids, go on holiday, these sorts of things. So that takes up a fair old proportion, because I think the average age of a hobbyist is probably mid-30s. Do you reckon?
I think the analytics of our channels probably tells us pretty well who the hobbyists are. I know the majority of my viewers are between sort of 25 and 35, I think, and most of them are male. Don't get me wrong, there are plenty of females in the hobby. Yeah, it's something like that. It's something crazy, like 90-something% are male. It's also, I always find it interesting. I know you're quickly looking at your analytics, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
That's why I thought I'm just filling the gap in.
92% male. And the biggest, actually, do you know what the biggest age category is 25 to 44 by a long way.
Yes.
So that's a wide average age, but you get the point.
Yeah. So I think that that sort of tells you, the people that are buying as well.
But James makes an excellent point. Why would you want to hang out with your kids when you've got a reef tank? Exactly.
I totally agree.
Exactly. Yeah, completely.
I totally agree. I'm currently trying to look at my analytics as well, just to see which of us has a larger female audience.
7.4% is my female audience. That's the lifetime of the channel.
I can't find.
So you'll have to.
8.3. There you go.
Oh, Ryan's the babe magnet.
So
yeah. Yes, that fluctuates a little bit. I found because I check in on it occasionally.
Yeah.
But it's always pretty low. I do wonder if there's. Oh, but actually, that's true. What I was going to say is, I do wonder if like female reefers are a bit quieter and you don't see them so much because they're in the minority, and so because I think often people see it as kind of like a man's hobby in a weird way, which it kind of is because blokes
if you look at the percentage of people, there is the majority of men. Yes. Don't get me wrong though. I get plenty of women come to the farm as well, and sometimes you know how there's this perception that it's the female partner sometimes in the relationship that doesn't like the tank. Sometimes women will come and their husbands have no interest.
I can well imagine.
But yeah, literally, some of them will literally sit in the car. They don't even want to get out.
Yeah. Like I'd rather just listen to.
I'd rather just sit in the car than do any more of this.
But there you go. So, and well, actually, whilst we're on analytics, my percentage of geographies, America is my top geography. 42% of my viewers are American. Hello, America, and 18.7% are UK, and then after that, it's Australia, Canada, Germany.
Yeah, so, basically exactly the same. Oh no, I got India for some reason rather than Germany.
Do you know what I get? I get a bit from India and Bangladesh as well, and I think. Because I've had people message me and tell me, I think that certain corals, quite a lot of corals, you can't import them. Maybe all corals, even in places like the Southeast Asia, like India and Bangladesh, those sorts of places. I think it's much harder to get hold of corals. It might even be impossible.
Yeah.
I think it's probably not impossible. But so I don't know. It's funny, but I don't know, because it's not like there are some countries that have access to the fish, and maybe maybe in India it's like on the south, so it's on the Indian Ocean. Maybe that's where it's
true.
But I don't know. Anyway, I might be just making that up, to be honest. But it just goes a bit flat in the summer. And anytime I speak to a shop, I spoke to a shop a couple of weeks ago, and I said, "Is this how you find it?" Yeah, and they said, "Yeah, it's always been the case." And actually, and most shops. There aren't many marine-only specialists, and most fish shops will sell tropicals, pond, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And apparently, summertime is the biggest time for pond. True. Because everybody goes outside and digs ponds. But a couple of weeks ago, it was like 30 degrees, so it was too hot. So the pond world was really quiet for that weekend. It's just funny how small fluctuations in the weather make huge changes.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that would happen, but I suppose it happens in all industries. Even if you think about it, if you've got an ice cream van, you're not going to sell anything in the winter.
Exactly. Yeah. So, indeed.
But yeah.
But have you been doing anything more exciting? Because I've just been doing water changes, basically.
Look, obviously, last week I came on and I had a very rough week, didn't I?
Yeah,
I lost a load of fish, and I actually watched some of that live stream back.
Yep.
Just to see how brutal it was for me to sit there. Now I've actually done a video on it. I've made it today. It's been uploaded. I just haven't clicked publish because I ran out of time. So it's literally ready. It's not interesting. It's literally just explaining to my viewers, because obviously not all of my viewers will watch this live stream.
I see, yeah.
So I can't continue with. Imagine if I just went episode 1, 2, 3, 4, all these fish, and then episode 5 is just completely different fish and no one knows.
6 months later, yeah.
Yeah. So I've just done a very quick video on that. With regards to the water box tank, I have added, which you think, why are you adding stuff to a tank that obviously had disease in it? I have added some invertebrates, because obviously now that there is no, now there's no tangs or anything in that tank, I need something to deal with the algae problems. So I think I have 8 urchins in there. I put some extra snails in there, and I've added a tiger cowrie. and I will be leaving the tank empty for 8 weeks. But yeah, it's but the thing that what I will say, I've also put a couple of shrimp in there.
Okay.
But you get when you've got nothing else to look at, you get a new love for the things you can look at. So urchins are now very interesting to me. The tiger cowrie as well. It won't be staying in there permanently. Tiger cowries have a habit of eating coral, I believe, and they also like bulldozers. They move things around.
Quite big and heavy, aren't they?
Yeah, so I just got one temporarily, just as something interesting to look at. So that's what I've done. Oh, also, obviously, I got a very, very exciting new piece of coral as well.
Before we come on to that, let's just wind back, because you're putting inverts in your tank.
Yes.
And why are you doing that? Because there'll be some people who are thinking, hang on a second, he's had a fish disease and he's putting inverts in. What's going on? So why? Well,
the inverts obviously won't be affected by the fish disease, and the urchins are to deal with any algae that comes from not having no fish in there. Because if I just left it at the end of after 8 weeks, the chances are the tank will be covered in algae. There is a certain level of phosphate in the tank, although it is coming now that there's no fish in there. I can start to make significant changes with regards to phosphate and things like that, because fish don't like lanthanum chloride, for example. So I'm hesitant of using it. Whereas like I've been adding it, and there isn't an issue with the urchins. So that's why. So basically, it'll deal with the algae issue, because I don't want to come back in 8 weeks and then have to deal with that.
Yeah, fair enough. So that makes perfect sense. I just mentioned it because obviously, well, you and I know that urchins and inverts don't carry fish parasites because they're specific to fish. There was a time I can remember, I could see it, I saw people doing that exact thing, and I was like, hang on a second, that you've got disease in that tank, haven't you? So I just thought I'd mention it in case someone was going,
basically it's it's just to deal anything that I will have to deal with for when I put coral in. I'm dealing with now, so I'm not doing this where I'm just completely ignoring the tank, and then there's gonna be a big mess, and then I'm gonna have to deal with it. So I'd rather just deal with it now while there's no fish in here. So there's still some progression. It's just from the outside, it just looks uninteresting, if you see what I mean.
Indeed. And the Planet 3D says, did you see the urchin issue in the Red Sea reduced by 90%? We talked about that in the news on a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, there is actually another area in, I don't know if I mentioned this, with the kelp farm. Not kelp farm, there's an area of kelp where they've collected all the lobsters, and the lobsters eat the urchins. So now the urchins are eating all the kelp. And obviously kelp's massive. So, but you only need to cut the very bottom of it to float off. So they need to, all those ones that are there, they need to move them over to the Red Sea to deal with that. They're obviously, that's a joke. They're probably different things. So
but there's all sorts of problems going on. But I did see that. But you were about to talk about a coral, a different coral.
Oh yes, there was a coral. So I was very lucky yesterday. I was invited to a very special event. For the first time, not for the first time, but I was invited out by Alex and his missus with my missus for dinner. After dinner, Alex gave me a coral which I've always wanted, basically. So I moved on from just fish friend to fish friend and going out to dinner friend.
let's just call it fish and coral friend, because maybe this whole thing was just to give you a coral.
Oh, just to give me the coral. Exactly, it was a clever ploy to get me to your house, I see.
Exactly.
So there is a coral. I don't know the name. Oh, I know what it is. It's a Montipora paloensis. It is the most. Do you actually know what it is?
I'm pretty sure I do. It took me a long time to work it out. I believe it's a juggernaut, Monty.
It is the most yellow Montipora paloensis that I've ever seen. Now, for you, it might not be yellow, but that's beside the point. But it's the most yellow Montipora paloensis I've ever seen, and it has these bright blue polyps. Have you got a picture of it?
No. Oh, actually, I probably have, to be fair. But the thing is, so I fragged this a few times, and every time I posted it as a coral to sell, and I'm scrolling through to see if I can find the picture. Every time I posted it as a coral to sell, I'd get, if I posted 10 threads, I'd get maybe 2 sales. People weren't really interested in it. And when I first posted it, I was thinking everybody's going to go crazy for this, because it is the nicest coral you will ever see in your life. In fact, I found it. Oh, hang on a second. I need to share screen. and then entire screen, and then
Yeah,
click
so
that, and
you
then
don't need to
everything.
describe it to all the people that
Hello.
are listening on the podcast.
So this is,
Yeah.
to be fair, I did tweak this photo a little bit. So those polyps aren't quite as electric blue as they are in real life, but it looks like that. And what I found was the people, although I couldn't really sell it for what I couldn't ever work out why, but the people who did buy it were all like, "Holy crap, that is awesome," and absolutely loved it. And it must be because I could never get a good photo, to be fair. But it's such a nice coral. And there was one guy I sold it, might be in the chat, So Reef. One guy I sold a frag to, after, I don't know, a month or so in his tank, it looked, because my tank is for aquapora really, so it's probably getting more light than it wants. In his tank, man, it looked absolutely awesome. So nice.
Yeah, there's a few people saying it's crazy tea. It's definitely not crazy tea. I've got crazy tea. I've got a few. I've got crazy tea. All the different other crazy ones. I've never seen this one before.
And even that photo I posted, that doesn't do it justice. And people always say that, but it doesn't.
The reason I wanted to mention it is because, so I obviously didn't know I was going to get this. I don't know at what point you planned to give it to me. I don't know if you planned before you invited me or not.
I've been planning it for ages. It's just didn't have the time to come down and see you.
You couldn't like manage to seduce me in there into
exactly.
Give it to me.
I'll take him out for dinner.
It's so the hobby has changed significantly over the years. So originally, back 30 years ago, but this was long before I did it, people used to swap frags with each other, didn't they? It wasn't a money orientated thing. Now,
frag bank.
Yes. So I'm the worst person to say this because obviously I sell coral for money. That's my business. That's what I do. But with you, we have almost developed that friendship now where quite often I'll just go, "Do you want something?" So you obviously got the rainbow chalice from me a little while ago, and I never expected anything in return. And I don't think you ever thought I expected anything in return.
No, I need. Yeah.
And then yesterday you went, "Here you go." And obviously I saw the tank before. I saw your tank before we went out, and there was this little tiny frag that was like this.
Yeah.
And I expected when you said you want it, that was what I was getting. And then you came back and it was like this. You gave me like a big piece, didn't you?
Yeah, I've kept my little frag, but
and I'll be honest, it's a bit of a strange thing. It like touched me, not inappropriately, just
it's not me.
Appropriately
the
enough.
Coral, the gesture.
The gesture, yeah, because there are not many people that do that these days. I think, as I said, I think people now know the values of their coral, and more often than not, they want to sell them rather than trading or even giving them away. Now, even I give corals away to people all the time in the mystery boxes. Sometimes I just need, I'll be honest with you, sometimes I just need to make space.
That's partly a part of a business plan, isn't it?
Yeah, because obviously if people enjoy it, they then come back.
Exactly.
And as I said, I'm not doing this out of generosity. Sometimes I just have too many corals. So there is a little bit of generosity there, but but when we do it for it, like if I give you a coral or you give me a coral, it's like back how people used to do it ages ago. So
yeah, I don't do that very often. I do from time to time.
I like how you're warning people, don't come to me for free coral.
No, but that's the trouble. So like, if anyone wants Tropic Thunder, mate, you can have as much as you want. Les, if you ever lose your bit, hit me up and you can have half a ton of the stuff. I hate it. Well, I love it and I hate it at the same time. But anyway, so that's, if I've got loads of stuff, I'm just going to throw it away, to be completely honest otherwise.
Yeah.
But there are sometimes a few that there are some corals that I really like that I've given out to a few people because I want it in the bank. Whether or not actually I could even, first off, I did that a while ago and then I forgot who I'd given it to. So, and then my mother colony died and I couldn't remember. I asked a couple of people and they were like, "No, sorry, mate." So, but anyway, whatever. The trouble is there is value, and I did a big fragging session the other weekend, and there's probably a few £100 there, and that will pay for my new lighting obsession next week. So
yes, you need sunglasses looking at your tank.
Yeah, do you know what? So I was sort of grumbling to you about the tank yesterday because you came out to have a look at it, and I was like, yeah, it's not really how I want it, and all this. And there are some things I look at, and I'm like, that Tropic Thunder, man, I wish I didn't put it in because it's just
but it looks amazing. When I saw it yesterday, it didn't look particularly overgrown. It looked like it fitted that space quite well.
There were a couple of corals. It was already overgrown though, right? One really nice acro, and that's what it does. So
did you notice? did you notice how when you went, oh, I don't really like this tank very much, I just ignored you?
Yeah, I didn't notice it, but
because no one likes their own tank. It's as simple as that. No one ever likes their own tank.
It's true. But then when I got back at the end of the evening, it was like 10 o'clock and the blue lights were on. And I was like, actually, it looks really quite awesome. So I kind of got over it.
Yeah.
But it's just, especially when you've had a tank. The trouble is, it hasn't turned out how I wanted it, because there are a few corals that I got wrong. So like I've got a sunset Monty that it's enormous. You've never seen so much sunset Monty in your life. And the Tropic Thunder is in 2 places. So it's massive in both places, and a couple of other bits like that. So that's part of it. But the reality is, it's still a really nice tank. And whenever I think about, and I was talking to you about upgrading, whenever I think about upgrading, I just think it would probably take me 2 years to get anything close to the point I'm at now with healthy SPS.
Yeah.
So do I want to go through all that? And do I want to give up a really nice established tank with big, because looking at big colonies is really cool compared to looking at frags. I like looking at frags as much as the next one, man, but colonies are awesome as well.
Well, that's what when I was looking in the coral farm today, because I'm starting to look at corals to go into the water box tank now. And I have a Montipora in the center of one of the trays, which is literally like, it is a spiraling Montipora.
It's where green one.
It's a green, with a blue edge, and it's got blue polyps on it. And it's massive. And it's not particularly fancy color, but you're so right. You don't see tanks with big colonies anymore. The only problem is that there is a support section in that tank for the lid, because the lid will sag otherwise. So there's an acrylic support in the middle, and the Montipora has spiraled around that. So to get it out, I have to somehow get that support out. I think it's very likely it would break if I did that.
You'd have to take the lid off, get a new support, throw that one away, and even then it would crack it.
I could slide the support out potentially, but the other thing is, how would I dip it? How would I how it would be?
If you fragged it, you'd have like 1,000 frags of it. Would you even have space for that? And
there's a reason it's so big, because people don't want it as much.
Exactly, that's the thing. Is I sold an LA Lakers Monty, lovely Monty, really nice LA Lakers color, purple and yellow. It was kind of a bit more green, but anyway, and it was over a foot across. It was huge. And I just took it to my local fish shop, and they gave me 30 quid credit. And it's like, but for them, if they can put that on their shelf, no one's going to buy it, or it might take them a while to sell it. And if they frag it, it means they've got a lifetime supply of LA Lakers Monty. And that, for the first few weeks, that might do really well, because it'll be a bit different and people won't have seen it. But then after a few weeks, when all the regulars have bought it, they'll just be like, oh, more LA Lakers, don't care. So hobbyists don't want it because it can't fit in your tank, and most people want a frag, and shops don't want it for other reasons. So
and I don't want it because it takes up real estate.
Exactly. Oh, and that's another thing. It's like, if you give it to a shop, they can either put 10, I don't know, A-cans there that will sell for 100 quid profit each, or whatever, or they can put one of these massive things in there that will take them 6 months to sell. So, but anyway, what else was I going to say? So so basically, it's reefing funk in the summer, and I do feel like it goes a bit flat, but I still like talking about fishing corals. So
of course. And to be fair, I still like buying fishing corals.
Yes, so do I. And actually, did I buy anything this week? I don't think I did. No.
This is what I never understand. What we do is like an addiction. We want to go every week to get something new. So why is that addiction slightly less in the summer?
Yeah, indeed. Well, it's not really. I'm just as addicted.
Do you think you buy as much, or you just?
I think I still do. It's just that there are fewer people around, so there's less people to talk to about it. The shops are a bit quieter. I still go in. I probably go in less, because I go in most weekends to at least one shop. I bet I average 2 shops a week. And maybe in the winter it's 3 shops a week. I don't know.
But you don't buy that much, so you're one of those guys.
I still do. One of those guys. Just looking around. Going, there was one time I went to this guy's house to. He had a load of corals, a load of frags for sale. Couldn't really make out what they were, so I said, "Look, do you mind if I come around and have a look? They look quite nice." I was like, "I'll probably take 4 or 5." And I got there. I was like, I didn't like any of them, so I took one piece of Monty Setosa for a £5. I was like, I'm really.
Oh, so you are one of those guys.
I just wasted your evening for like £1. Sorry, but
Did you say that?
I can't remember. It was years ago now. But,
okay.
But anyway, we're going to move on to questions. So this is questions from YouTube members, and also questions from the Prestige Reef Dork Show Facebook group. And is this the right one? No, 10 days ago. I think there are no questions from members this week. There are not questions from members, but there was loads of stuff on the world's best reefing Facebook page, Prestige Reef Dork Show, which currently has 685 members.
I am absolutely shocked that it has got to that many. I thought you might get, I don't know, a couple of hundred people. I'm shocked. And as I said before, the community on there is amazing.
It's so nice. I love it. But because it should be, because 700 if that's, I mean, there are groups out there with tens of thousands, so but given that there's on average 4,000 people watch this every week, roughly 4,000 to 5,000 maybe in total.
Yeah.
And of those, probably maybe half are on Facebook, and of those, maybe you'd think it would just like you'd cut down slices all the time and you get fewer and fewer people. But actually, anyway, whatever. There's loads of really good stuff on there. So we're going to do first off and this is urchins. There's loads of stuff about urchins this week.
Is there?
Yeah. So have you ever seen these urchin hats? This is
yes.
Jason Wright. And he says the happiness you feel when your urchin wears its hat for the first time.
Yeah, mine's currently walking around with a rock with algae on it.
This is the thing.
I'm like, you're not meant to wear it, you're meant to eat it.
In my main tank, it's so funny that is. In my main tank, he just covers himself in gravel because I've got quite coarse gravel.
Yes.
But on my second tank, he covers himself in zoas. So he's got utter chaos and scrambled egg zoas. He looks awesome. But it's like, would you mind? But I've always wondered if these hats work. I suspect what they do is they pick it up, they'll wear it for a week or two, and
someone then quickly takes a picture for Instagram, and then they drop it off.
And then it's like, oh, that was so last season, and they change the hat to something else, because that's what they do with. I find they might keep the same stuff on, like in terms of zoas or whatever, for a couple of months, but I've never seen an urchin pick something up and be like, that's it, I'm wearing that for the rest of my life. But it looks cool. And I bet they're like 50p or something. So off eBay.
Yeah, probably. I can see people saying I need to get hats for my urchins. Then I can tell them all apart. So one of the interesting things I've noticed, I have two different types of urchins in there. I have the blue tuxedo urchins, and I have the Halloween urchins.
The orangey ones. Yeah.
Yes, Halloween ones are my favorite. I absolutely love them. I think I've got 6. They're all different colors. They all have different patterns. They're all different sizes. One of them's really black with hardly any orange. And one of them's really orange with hardly any black.
Yeah. I've never had one of those. I think they're cool.
Those don't pick things up as much as the blue tuxedo.
Oh, really?
Definitely. 100%. As I said, I've got 6 in there and 2 blue ones. The blue ones are covered and the orange one's got nothing on them.
Okay.
So there must be some reason that they do that. But
yeah, I don't know why, but they're just, urchins are wicked. And there's some urchin appreciation going on the Facebook group this week. I'm just going to jump to a question from Danny Wood, who says, will the orange buckets from B&Q, 99p orange buckets, mess my RODI water up? No, they will not. They are HDPE, high density polyurethane, something like that. HDPE is reef safe, and everybody in the hobby has a B&Q orange 99p bucket.
I don't.
You're going to tell me you don't now, yeah?
I don't. I have 2 black buckets, but they're not orange.
There are a couple of things. There are Sainsbury's do a set of jugs, 1/2 litre, 1 litre, and 2 litres. Have you got those?
No.
Okay. All right. I was about to say everybody's got that.
Everyone's got those too. No, remember I work on things on a much more industrial scale than the average tank.
Yeah, indeed. But okay. Anyway, but no, the orange buckets are great. Second urchin appreciation post from the Prestige Reef Dork Show Facebook page was this, and this was from Tom Dubban, who says, "Hi guys, after listening to loads of Reef Dork bigging up urchins, I took the plunge with my newly cycled Waterbox 90. I have to say the brown algae on the rock has completely gone. Most underrated cleanup crew ever, and I would never have got one."
Yeah,
I mean. They're just so good.
I love that when we talk about stuff, sales of that creature go up, which is good for some things, but not good for things like boxfish.
I was going to say, if you make a video saying don't get a boxfish, 100 people go, "Oh, I'll get a boxfish."
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
But urchins are a win-win for everybody. They're
They only become annoying when your frags aren't stuck down. That's when they become annoying.
And so there was what I did have one that I bought an expensive zoa. It was a single polyp zoa. Buying a single polyp zoa is a bad idea anyway.
Yes,
You
correct.
always get half a dozen ideally. Anyway, I bought a single polyp zoa for like 80 quid. And it took I saw it on the back of the urchin one day, and he was hiding behind my rockwork. I was like, I can't get him. I was like, I'll get him another day. The next day, it disappeared, and I never saw it again. So there is a downside to them, but it's so worth it. And if that was probably that frag had probably been sold too quickly because it hadn't stuck to the frag plug.
Yeah.
And if you stick your frag plugs down properly, they can't take them. But you do have to like nail them down.
I was under the impression as well, this is going to sound really stupid for years, but remember I never had one, was that urchins were poison. I don't know if they were poisonous. You couldn't touch the spines. I was under that impression for years. Because as I said, I never had them. And there is definitely something about urchins, because if you step on them, I don't know if it's like a bacterial infection you can get or something like that. But there's definitely something about urchins and not piercing your skin, definitely. But apparently it's I now know that you can pick them up.
there are some things like that. I trod on when I was about 15. I trod on a weaver fish. You ever heard of a weaver fish?
No.
Oh my god, it's just this little thing. It's only about a couple of inches long, buries itself in the sand and sits on like close to the shore on beaches. And it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. Still, I've broken my arm. I've had some nasty injuries. That was agony, and like, you have to get it treated. They can't do anything about it. They give you like a treatment or whatever. But man, it was horrible.
I would say probably a similar thing about when I got stung by a jellyfish in Australia, and it went down my swimming shorts. And oh yes,
Where did it sting you?
And I thought to myself, something's very wrong. I put my hand into my swimming shorts, which then stung my hand, and then the jellyfish was stuck to that hand. So I then wiped it off with the other hand, and it stung that. Remember, you're freaking out by this point.
Like, rubbing it on your face and.
And then I text my parents afterwards, because I knew it was a jellyfish, and it was one of the ones that put people in the hospital, and it put me in hospital.
Jesus, what was it? Do you remember what type?
I can't remember now. All I know is I remember being in an ambulance and being on a beach. It's in my jellyfish video. There's the picture of me on the beach with an oxygen mask on because I couldn't breathe properly.
Jesus.
And they put me on morphine, so that was fun. But the thing was, I texted my parents to go, haha, I've just been stung by a jellyfish, because it doesn't hurt straight away.
Right.
And then like literally 15 minutes later, I was on the beach, couldn't breathe. And about 20 minutes later, I was in an ambulance.
Well, it's like those are they called box jellyfish? The little. No. I'm thinking of a blue ring. A box jellyfish will kill you, actually. A German tourist died in Portugal a few years ago. But no, I was thinking of blue ring octopus, but that's completely different.
That will also kill you. But that's if you as I say, if you want to see you can see why I've got a severe hatred towards jellyfish.
Yeah, I can. They're boring anyway. You had a jellyfish tank, didn't you?
Yeah, they are the world's most ungrateful pet, other than seahorses.
Just spinning around and
hate seahorses.
Seahorses are more ungrateful. Wow.
No, other than seahorses. Jellyfish are definitely the number one for things I don't like, and then seahorses, I don't know, they're just a pain in the arse, seahorses. So I just don't get them.
Fair enough. Yeah, okay. But they just don't like flow, do they? I've got some pipefish. They're orange stripe, blue stripe pipefish. They're very small. Yeah. And people always say, oh, they don't like flow. And so I've never put one in my SPS tank. I've got them in my LPS tank.
Yeah.
And I've got 4 Nero 5 powereds in there, but they're all running very low because it's LPS. So I do like more flow than most people, I think. But either way, it's still quite low flow. But the other, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I put the powereds on 100% just for 30 seconds to clear some detritus, and it was like it was dead. It got caught in the flow, and it was like a leaf in the wind. Ooh, so I instantly turned them back off. Yeah, and because any other fish will just like swim past it and they'll be like, "Ooh, get blown away."
Yeah.
But it was just like they really don't deal with flow. Really don't.
If you want one for your SPS tank, the dragon pipefish do okay.
They're a bit bigger. These little orange stripes are tiny.
Yes, yeah. And they're longer, and they also sort of curl round things, so it's almost like they're supporting their body on something.
I don't think I do want one for my main tank, but
they're one of the fish. When people come to the farm, they go, wow, what's that stretched out seahorse is what everyone says.
Yeah.
But they're one of my favorite fish. I quite like them in there. Didn't realize that they release a toxin.
Really?
I didn't know that. Yeah, they release a toxin. Not the same as some other things that release toxins. But yeah, dragon
Okay.
pipefish. Supposedly, I was told by a fish. It was like I'm not saying fish expert as it lightly. This is a fish expert. That they contain a toxin. I never knew.
Don't eat them then.
I won't be licking it anytime soon. Basically,
don't lick your pipefish.
There you go. You heard it here first.
And the next comment was from Paul Sanford, and this is one for you, Ryan. Will a Melanaris wrasse, aka Hooven's wrasse, get on with a China wrasse, yellowtail wrasse, and a radiant wrasse?
I've had it with a yellowtail wrasse. 1 second, I need to.
Yellowtail. I think he might mean yellowtail tamarin wrasse, or he might just mean a yellow wrasse. Probably yellowtail.
I like how you've asked me just because I've had a Melanaris, whereas
I've had a Melanaris wrasse, and I'm going to give you my answer. But
okay, you give me your, because I don't keep wrasse, do I? I have a very specific set of wrasse. I have a yellow chorus.
You've got a Melanaris wrasse, haven't you?
Yeah. But what I mean, I've not kept those other ones, so I can't give an honest opinion.
So I've had all of those. In fact, I've had all of those fish at some point, but I don't think I've had them all together. But the one thing I found with my Melanaris wrasse was they get big. At first, he was fine, but they do get big, and he became a bully. It's very rare that I've had wrasses that were bullies, but he was a bully. And if you look around enough, you will find people having the same experience. I'm not saying they're an aggressive fish. Yeah. They're not. I think they're aggressive for a Halichoris wrasse, because Halichoris are almost always peaceful, and you can keep them with all of them. And actually, my answer would be they'll get on completely fine with all of those different wrasses. The wrasses go really well together.
Generally, there are a few that are not quite like that. Like
Harlequin tuskfish.
And you could like a harlequin tuskfish and a carpenter's wrasse.
Flash.
Don't go well together.
Some fish don't like flashes wrasse, fairy wrasses, but I would genuinely think they're fine. But Melanaris wrasse can get a little bit feisty. But I'm particularly sensitive. I don't like any aggression in my tank whatsoever. Yeah. So
flashes wrasse are one of those fish where they're exactly the same as a firefish, where you go. They're sold all the time to people, but more often than not, they don't do well with most other fish because they need a non-aggressive tank.
Yeah.
But people don't know this. They just go, "Oh, flash wrasse, that's nice."
I've tried a few flash wrasses. They generally get on really well, but every single one of them, after a point, whether it's 6 months, a year, whatever, has found that they got bullied. One was by a harlequin tuskfish, which generally people say are peaceful towards fish.
Yeah.
And it was too big to be a meal, but so one got bullied by a harlequin tusk, the other two got bullied by my whitetail coal tang. And whitetail coal, mine's fine. He's the most peaceful tang I've had, but they can be a bit aggressive. And I've heard stories of people with whitetail coal tangs saying they're really aggressive. So maybe in a few years' time, mine will start to get a bit big for his boots, and I'll have to kick him out.
That was one of the only fish I had trouble with, actually, a whitetail coal tang, where as in not for aggressive point of view, as in being not aggressive enough. So most of my obviously I've got basically every tang you can think of. I've got, and most of them will get on with each other, but they just would not accept a whitetail coal. Don't know why. There are other coal tangs in there, but the whitetail coal tang. And it wasn't even the other coal tangs which were causing the problem. It was things like the zebrazomas that were causing the problem, which was unusual because they're very different. But yeah, I had trouble with one of those.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? But there you go. So there's the answer. They'll probably be fine, but Melanaris wrasse can get a bit aggressive. But you might not have to worry about that for a few years. You might not ever have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And two more things from the Prestige Reef Dork Show Facebook group. One was reported by two people. And first was Thomas Hanlon, who's got these zoas. Can you see the zoas?
Yes. Yeah.
They are shriveled up like your testicles in winter.
Nice.
So they're not looking good. And someone else had the exact same thing. In fact, it was the page before, Ben Malloy. Exact same thing. Completely receded zoas. And the question here is, I've got my zoas aren't opening up. I moved them over the past 2 months around into different lighting in the tank. It won't be that; it'll be water. And they don't open like all other zoas in my tank. And they're growing, and the other zoas are doing great. These are being a pain. The green one, no idea of the name, but they don't open up. Blah 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 blah. Basically. So, and the reason I've posted that is not to tell you how to fix that exact problem, but I'm going to run through a list of the things that I would look for with any coral. And so there were a couple of things on there that stood out. First, he said he's moved it around a little bit. If your zoas are like that, it's almost certainly water quality. not lighting or flow or anything, I would say, unless you've got unusually high light or unusually high flow. Zoas seem to be, in my experience anyway,
you have something really high light, and I grow something really low light. So.
Exactly, high flow, low flow. There'll be some that don't like it, but generally it's not that. That'll be water quality. And what I would do, the checklist of what I would go through, and we'll see if there's things you add or change. First thing, and the other thing was, he said his other Zoas are fine.
Yeah.
And that you think, okay, that must mean something's wrong with this, but that doesn't necessarily mean that. the hobby is just frustrating sometimes.
Yes, tell me about it.
You'll have 10 SPS, for example, or 10 Zoas or whatever. 9 of them will be fine. One of them is going crazy. And that doesn't mean your water's fine because everything else is okay. It just means that one is particularly sensitive. And it might be the canary in the coal mine, basically.
Yeah.
So the first thing I would do with that is I would test salinity. And then I would test salinity again, having calibrated whatever device I'm using for salinity.
Yeah.
And that is, and even if you think, no, I know what my salinity is, it's fine. I tested it a month ago. Test it again, and make sure you calibrate whatever you're testing it with, because if you haven't and it's off, because they can drift. Anything that tests salinity can drift, and if you're getting a false reading, then you're stuffed. And if it's salinity, it's an easy fix.
I always recommend the Hannah salinity checker for salinity, because you can calibrate it.
Yes, exactly. But you can get
subject to it being calibrated. And because if you don't calibrate it, it will lose calibration quickly as well.
Quickly, yeah. Sometimes they can last for a couple of months and be fine, but more often after a week, maybe mine's like a year old or whatever, and it doesn't age well. But I now calibrate it every week, and once you've calibrated it, test it straight away, it's fine. But that would be the first thing. And then the other things that could do it, have a think about what fish are in your tank. Because if a coral is retracted, it might be getting irritated by a fish. And this isn't necessarily the solution to this problem, but this is the tick list I'm going through. So it might be getting irritated by a fish. If you've got a flame angel and you're like, yeah, but I've never seen him peck it, that might be the answer.
That doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. And again, you might think, well, all the other 9 Zoas are fine. Why this one? Sometimes fish just say, I like green corals today.
Yeah.
Or I like red corals. So it's weird.
Your copper band likes red acans, isn't it? Or green acans?
Green acans, yeah. And doesn't like red acans, weirdly. Yeah. But yeah. But so there might be a fish. So have a look at what fish you've got in the tank. There might be a pest.
True. That was what I was going to say.
And that's often the case. And the trouble with pests, particularly on Zoas, is Zoa-eating nudibranchs are one of the worst ones. Zoa spiders is waking up, but Zoa-eating nudibranchs are the worst. One of the worst. But they take on the color of whatever coral they eat. So they're really, if you can inspect it really closely and miss them. You can blow them with a turkey baster, and sometimes that will blow the nudies into the water column. Then you might see them. But even then, you might miss them, or there might be eggs, or they might not come off. So it might be a pest. So if you can remove it and dip it, that's the first thing I do. If it's completely stuck to the rock, then you're stuffed. But if it's on a rock of its own, I'd take it out and dip it. I would also, later down the list, I'd do an ICP test, because you might be things, metals make corals retract. So if there's a rusting pump or whatever, check all your return pumps, all your power heads. If you've got an MP40, you can just twist the cage off, pull the impeller out, completely strip it down, and check if it's rusting. You can do it really easily. So
that's something that's so important for people that are buying secondhand equipment, because so often when people, like during some of the consultations, people go, oh yeah, I've got secondhand equipment. And I go, right, these are the things you need to check. And even not secondhand equipment sometimes, but secondhand equipment especially, because what usually happens when someone is fed up with their tank, they turn it off, they leave it. Sometimes they'll leave it in the water. Sometimes they'll leave it out the water. They don't rinse anything off. And these things, even myself, the other day, I used, I had one of those hang-on UV sterilizers, and they're called like Green Demon something.
Green Machine,
something like that.
Green Killing Machine.
I used it 2 years ago or 3 years ago in the farm to get rid of a bacterial bloom. It worked within 3 days. Took it out of the tank, left it, never used it again. And then there was a bacterial bloom in the water box tank. This was quite a few weeks ago now. And I got it out, put it in, and then I thought, wait, whoa. I always tell people to check, and I hadn't checked. I put it in, didn't turn it on, took it out. It was completely rusted the whole way through.
Yeah.
So, and
this is the thing.
I'm so glad.
Yeah, exactly. And with secondhand equipment, in particular, and even with new equipment, I've had new pumps rust and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
With second-hand equipment, it often gets left out of salt, like you say, out of salt water, and then all the water evaporates, and that leaves behind just the salt, and that makes it rust more. And then it will swell and crack and all these sorts of things. And even that's whether it's a cheap pump like a Jecod pump or an expensive pump like an MP whatever Vectra. And I bought two MP10s that had been, I know the person who sold it, they'd been left out of his tank for a month or so, and they were working fine when he had it. And then when I got them, they both cracked because they'd been left. And it's not the pump's fault, it's physics' fault or chemistry's fault or whatever.
So most people don't think about this when they take stuff out.
Why would you? You'd just be like, it looks clean, cool. But you've got to, so you strip down all your, anyway, getting a little bit sidetracked. Phosphate and nitrate, I think, is less likely to be an issue with a coral retreating like that, but I would absolutely test phosphate in particular. But I would test phosphate and nitrate as well, and all of the big three: calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium. Whether I've never know really if that affects soft corals. Those three.
I think it does.
I think it
it
must do, but
it probably on a much lesser scale. There's a far larger swing with regards to if your alkalinity is very low or very high. I'm sure that it would affect soft corals as well.
Yeah, there you go. And if you've gone through all of that and everything is in range, and ideally, if you're doing this every week, you'll have an idea, because if it might be that your alkalinity is 7, and you're like, oh, it's fine. What's the problem? And actually, alkalinity yesterday was 10, and that's the problem. If you can keep a record, that's really handy. If none of that turns up anything, ICP tests are really good because they will turn up if there's copper, tin. What's the other one that always comes up when there's metals? Zinc. There are a few things that pop up when there are heavy metals in your tank. So an ICP test, that's the last thing I would do. But also water changes will probably fix that. Big water changes, depending on, I wouldn't do 100% water change on my SPS dominated tank, but I regularly do 60-70% water changes on my 10-gallon Fluval Evo, 13-gallon Fluval Evo regularly.
In theory, if you take 50% out and replace it with 50% of the correct water, you're 50% closer to being, you're 50% better off.
And if you're doing water changes regularly, the stuff that's causing these problems won't build up in the first place, which is why it's just so important. But also, you want to check your source water. So if you're buying RODI water from your local fish shop, then you need to ask them. So just out of curiosity, what's the TDS on this? And if they can show you, so much the better. But ask them, because some shops, and this is nothing against the shops, some shops, for example, only sell RO water.
Yeah.
And at that point, the TDS will be anything from 10 to 100. And they will tell you it's RO. They're not trying to hide it. It's just that if you don't know what you're looking for, you might think, oh, that's fine, 10 parts per million, that's okay. But it might have something really nasty in it. Or if you haven't changed your filters on your own RODI filter for a while, then you might be having problems with that. So test your own TDS with an inline TDS meter.
You can get obviously a handheld TDS meter as well, which is they're very cheap compared to most things that test things. I'm pretty sure they're under £10. And you can literally take that with you to a shop, fill up the thing, make sure you got a clean bucket, because if your barrel's not clean, you'll be throwing it off. If you have a brand new barrel and you fill it with RO water, and it's not 0, which it should be, then
I've never tested that way. People always say that if you put water in a barrel, RO water in a barrel, it'll then take on whatever TDS is in the barrel, so it might give a false reading. Have you found that? Or
well, not with a brand new one,
right,
with like a completely brand new barrel. No, even I've tested the TDS of the new 600-litre barrels after I filled them up, just out of interest to see like what they're, and it was it was like, it wasn't completely 0. The water coming out was completely 0, but there was a couple of bits of, leaves and stuff, not leaves, but a bit of dust that had gone in there. But it was hardly anything. So I don't think it will. If the barrel has had salt in it previously, it absolutely will because there will be a little bit of salt left in there, and that will properly throw it out. But if it's a clean one, it shouldn't.
Okay. Is there anything else from my checklist that you would go through and say things to look at?
Not particularly, if I'm honest. My question would be, why did you move it? And have you tried moving it back to the same place it was before?
He would have moved it because it's receding, and it's like, oh, maybe it's. I think he said
he wasn't happy originally. Then
I think he said he moved it to different light spots. So I think he was trying, and I've done that loads of times before. And sometimes that worked. Generally, if it's rare that it's a coral that is unhappy because it's not getting enough light. It's normally really unhappy. I mean,
Yeah.
like you can tell if a coral's not getting enough light, but it's not that common. But if it's coral's really unhappy, it's probably getting too much light. So if you move it to a low light spot, like a shaded bit, it should recover if that's the issue. And if it doesn't, then moving it around probably isn't going to help.
Going forward, this is something that when people are posting on the Facebook page, it's very useful to add all of the information that you can, as much of it as you can, because this is a perfect example. You're saying these are the things I would test. So, whereas if you already had those details, people are more likely to come back to you.
The only thing I'll say with that is that because there are loads of posts that come in, too many to keep on top of.
Yeah.
But what I do, I go through them, and because if someone posted all this information, it would take a long time to go through. So I don't think I would do. But you're absolutely right. If you can post,
I'm not suggesting that this is for you. I'm suggesting that someone else might be able to go. Actually, I can help with this issue.
So a full photo of the full tank. If if it's really blue, take it under white light, and if it's still blue, download Snapseed and turn the warmth up. That'll remove all the blue light. So just take a photo and post as much information as you can. So test your salinity, nitrate, phosphate, alkalinity, calcium, and magnesium the day you post it, because it's a lot of the times, and I've done this before. You post it and you're like, oh, I can't be bothered to test my result. I'll just put up the last results, and they were a month ago, but that was near enough. But it's the fresher your results are, the better it'll be. But,
yes. Yeah.
And the last thing from the Prestige Reef Dork Show Facebook page is from James York. And this is about the state of corals in some shops. Naming no names. But what he's saying is he wants to gauge everyone's opinion, thinking he's wondering if he's being paranoid or overreacting. And he says his local fish shop takes a relaxed approach to pests on corals. Looking at corals in these shops, he talks about a couple of shops, there's obvious aptasia on a number of corals. And he's saying, should I just steer clear completely, or should I, or is that okay? And my view on that is that there will not be a shop in the country, maybe not a shop in the world, that does not have aptasia. Some of them will hide it, and when I say hide it, I don't mean they're like sneaking in before the customers come in and putting them all out of the way and going. I mean, some of them will deal with it better, and there'll be aptasia in the weir box or whatever. And other shops that if you see aptasia covered on an entire coral tray everywhere, and algae on the glass and corals like half receding, showing skeletons and dying, that sort of thing, that's probably a sign that the shop isn't that invested in the maintenance and ongoing maintenance. I would still keep going back, because it might just be they're having a member of staff might have left who was a specialist, and it's been a month since they got someone in or whatever. So I wouldn't say that means right off the shop completely, but that's a fair sign that there's probably an issue. But if there's just a few bits here and there, and if there's half a dozen frags with aptasia on it and that sort of stuff, it's not, that's normal, is what I would say.
Yeah, I'm, as you said, 99% sure everyone at some point will have come across it, including myself. Now, I have a cough band in every single tank, so you will struggle in most of my. I have one tank which has been separated from the rest of the system, which I did have an outbreak in, and that outbreak's now gone. I'm just being honest with you. I'd rather and there's only the corals in that tank are. There's 3 caterpillars at the moment, and there's some candy canes. Now, that tank now does have a cough band in it. Yeah. But there's no point in me pretending that it didn't happen. So, but I've dealt with it. There's now no aptasias in that tank. There now is a cough band in that tank. And as I said, that tank has been separated from the rest of the system for a period of time, because I didn't want that to get worse. Now, it is impossible to keep everything out. I have seen videos of very, very good shops where they say, "Oh yeah, there's nothing wrong with any of my corals," and then when you know what you're looking for, you start to see things. These are all over the world. This can be like even places like Worldwide Corals. They'll have every pest you can possibly think of. Think about how many corals that go through their systems. Now, remember, I've not seen their system, so I can't say for sure. So I'm not saying this is a definite. I'm just saying the probability is very high.
Even the likes of top shelf aquatics, worldwide corals, the best in the business, basically in the world, it's not possible. It's not, and it's not because of slack practices or whatever. There are some shops where that might be the case, but it's not the occasional pest here or there. It's just you walk in, like corals half dead, everything looking awful, algae on the glass, aptasia everywhere. You can tell the difference between neglect and just what the world is like.
Because sometimes the corals might have come in 2 days ago or the previous night. The owner opens them. Did you just get a beer?
I did. I just texted her.
Because Marina sent me a message. Marina's watching and she literally just said, Alex has finished his beer, wait for the beer to turn up.
Yep.
Bloody hell, you're a lucky man.
I know.
So the corals come in the evening usually. They'll come in usually about 6 o'clock, so that like the shop has to close. The shop might be there until 9 o'clock opening all their corals, and you can't see an aptasia. Or when you've got 60 70 corals coming in, you can have one aptasia in there. So it's unrealistic to expect it to be completely clear of everything all the time.
Yeah, there's 2 comments I'm going to put from aquatic interest. One says, pests will be never be removed. As Ian Malcolm said it in Jurassic Park, life finds a way.
Yes.
And that's exactly right. And it's just the way it is. And even like, so I inspect corals closely when I get them. And I look around to make sure there's nothing on them. I dip them, all that sort of stuff. I cut them off the frag plugs, not always. Sometimes I'm naughty. But I do all those sorts of things. And I still get them. And that's one coral I'm getting each week. If a shop's getting hundreds in, there's no way they could be as diligent as a single hobbyist, although they've probably got more expertise. But even if they are that diligent, by just the law of numbers, it's just so I would never. And even if you see a coral, I've been to shops before where LPS half dead, skeleton everywhere, algae on the glass, and I've walked away and thought, not buying anything from there. But I wouldn't ever write a shop off. If you go there, half a dozen times over the course of 6 months and it's the same, then maybe that's an indication. But I would always give the shops benefit of the doubt, because there are times when I've been in really good shops and their displays have looked a little bit sad. And it's just the way it is. It can't be. It's not. You're not selling, brand new cars or whatever. You're selling animals that sometimes look sad and sometimes have pests. So, So personally, I wouldn't be fussed about that. I'd weigh it. But I wouldn't. To be fair, the other thing I'd say is if there's a frag with an aptasia on it, I wouldn't buy it.
Oh yeah, that's an obvious
that's
one.
The thing I should say.
Every coral that I send out, I check. One of the main reasons I check is for your bloody Asterina starfish. But every single coral, and don't get me wrong, do you know what surprised me the other day? I don't know what it was, but there was a I do know what it was. There was a shell of a crab in the coral farm, and I'm like, I didn't put that in there. And I cut everything, all the bases get cut off, everything, and all I saw was this shell, and I'm like, where is this little bastard? And is this a good crab? Is it a bad crab? I don't know. It's because they can be both. It could even have been like a Mithrax crab I put in 3 years ago I'd forgotten about. So
so I bought some live rock for my water box, my LPS tank. I bought live rock, all Australian live rock. It was bloody expensive. It was 25 quid a kilo. And when I got it, it was just completely white. There were a few like dead coral skeletons on it, so you could tell it being in the reefs, but there was no life on it. And I was like, oh, that's a shame. I kind of wanted a bit of microfauna and a bit of variety. And then about 3 months later, I started seeing stomatella snails and brittle stars and all these other critters that had come out of the woodwork, and fatten worms and all these sorts of things. And it's like, so that stuff was deep bedded inside the rock, and it took a while to come out. So there's just no way of eradicating everything. But anyway, I think we're laboring the point now.
Yes, yeah.
And that takes us on to the Prestige Reef Fish of the Week. Ryan, what you got for us?
I have gone for, I'm not sure if this is the common name for it, but I've gone for a redhead wrasse. Now, the reason I've gone for this is because I don't want to just show you, I don't want to give you a flame angel. You've seen a flame angel before. I saw one of these the other day, I think last week.
You saw it in the flesh, I mean. You saw it,
I saw it in the flesh. Yeah, I saw it in the flesh. I think it was 2 of them. Never seen one before. And it's very rare for me to see a fish that I've never seen before, especially these days. And I just thought, as soon as I saw it, I went, that is the fish I'm going to show people this week, because it's a member of the same family as some of the very common wrasse. So I don't know why it's not more commonly collected. I know literally nothing about this. Basically, so the reason I put this up was because I was interested. Has anyone in the comments got one of these? It looks like a parrot to me. You know,
That's exactly what I said. Yeah,
it's got a green, like a green body with a red head. But yeah,
I would bet no one's got one of these in the chat. I've seen pictures. I've seen it before in the sense that I've seen photos of it, but I don't think I've ever seen one in the flesh. I might have done and missed it, but I don't think so.
I don't know if the reason they're not collectors, but you don't see them, is because they get 3 feet long. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if they eat
probably.
everything
They're endemic to the Banggai Islands, Flores and Banggai Islands. Is it? Is it prohibited to export fish from the Banggai Islands, or is that just the Banggai cardinals, or is that not even true?
I know they're an endangered species in
That's what
there
I mean.
now, but they're not anymore. Obviously, they're actually, there's a wild population somewhere else. They're another one of those invasive species. It might even be, it might be somewhere in America, but there is they're not doing well on their own place, but they've gone wild everywhere else. And Sydney Aquarium as well have got like this, I think it's like a 15-foot display tank, and there's probably 1,000 of them in there. Where they probably started with like just a pair, and then all the baby, they just kept breeding, and now you just see all these babies and all the corals. So they do survive in our tanks with no extra help. But yeah,
so I've got a breeding pair in my tank, and I saw the male with his mouth full before I went on honeymoon, and so I 3D printed a little cage that only babies could get into. But when I got back, there was nothing in there. But you can get a long spine urchin, because that's in the wild. The babies hide in the spines of long spine urchins, though. But I've seen him like a mouthful of babies a couple of times, and normally what happens is they just get eaten by whatever fish are around. Maybe even the parents eat them, because animals are stupid. But every now and then you'll get one that you'll be looking in your sump one day, and you'll be like, "Oh my god, there's a baby Banggai cardinal!" And you'll see people posting. I got one that escaped to my sump on the first ever tank I set up. And I raised it till it was that big, so still tiny, and I gave it to my neighbor, and he got eaten.
See, I used to breed them like on purpose, and I used to raise the babies in the old jellyfish tank, because you're meant to feed them at first rotifers, and I didn't have to culture rotifers, so I was getting frozen rotifers, putting them in the chrysal tank, which is the jellyfish tank, so it constantly moves. I connected the jellyfish tank to the main system via a pump, so that there was no water quality issue, and I just used to feed them frozen rotifers, and I could raise them. But there was definitely a massive difference between they suffer from something called sudden fright syndrome, where they literally you might have you usually get about 24 of them in a batch, and all of a sudden 12 of them will just randomly die. It doesn't appear to be any reason for it at all. That's why it's called sudden fright syndrome. But yeah, I had good success breeding them. I really enjoyed it.
It was really, because that was my first ever tank, and it was amazing to see that. I was first off delighted that I'd got a mated pair, because the guy in the shop who sold them to me, a guy called Cam. Did you know Cam Tropical Paradise?
I recognize that name.
Cam, I can't remember his surname. Oh, I can't remember his surname. But he's like a legend of the hobby. He's Cam's barley reef, who had the massive, like, 1-billion-gallon tank in his garden.
He built a special room for it, didn't he?
That's it.
It was like yes, I remember that tank.
So he's just so good. He was absolutely brilliant to talk to. But it's very difficult to tell the difference between a male and a female, but he could, and he picked them out for me. But it was just really satisfying raising this child, fish baby. Although it did then get eaten. So
that was one of those shops which was exceptional, but it then disappeared. It was known for being one of the very good shops. I believe. Well, this was when I first went there. It might have gone downhill when it closed. They had like 3 Clarion Angels, which were £4,000 each.
Bloody hell!
That when I went there, so he's still
going there all the time. No, it's shut down. I think he shut down. I think he owed some people money.
He didn't ever do anything else afterwards. I was just interested.
Not that I'm aware of. He kind of disappeared, like Innovation Aquatics disappeared, and you don't hear anything from them. So, but it was a wicked shop when it was. And Cam, who used to work there, he left before it shut down. And I was gutted, because I really wanted him to. Reef Dreams were looking for someone, and actually it turned out to be Sean got that job. But I was really hoping they'd get Cam, because Cam was just amazing. Just a nice guy as well. And Eastleigh, it was Les. That's it.
That tank was insane. The one that it wasn't it lit by the sun as well.
Sunlight. Yeah. We've talked about it before. I think I dug it out on Ultimate Reef and showed photos, but yeah. So and okay, so that's your fish of the week, a random one.
Yeah.
What about the Prestige Reef Coral of the week?
I have decided to go for papaya clove polyps for this, because a lot of people often they want something that's a soft coral which has movement, which is also really pretty.
Yeah.
And this sums it up perfectly as far as I'm concerned. So that's why I think you've got a picture of them. They're not. Wait, that's my picture, is it? That's not even a very good picture.
That was the first thing that came up when I Googled it. I swear to God.
That's not a good picture of them. They do there's much better.
One on the left looks good.
Yeah, I took that picture. So before the coral farm, I actually was working with someone else, and that's from their system.
Right. Okay. 329Q. I don't know what currency that is.
Not sure what Q is, but those are one of the best soft corals you can get, and they're not overly invasive. They're the same as anything which is like this. So you get yellow polyps, or there's the similar way. If you completely ignore them, they'll take over. But trust me, if this takes over your tank, that's a good thing because they're worth a load of money usually. 329Q. You can buy a lot with that.
I think that's probably just a website issue. That's not like, I think they're out of stock or whatever. But he's trying not to sell them.
Yeah.
But do they? So I've never had them because I'm scared that they get invasive, and they have a reputation for spreading like crazy.
Yeah. They're nowhere near as bad as Xenia. So I kept them in the same tray as the Xenia, and the Xenia just grew onto the rock that they were on. So I had to separate them because the Xenia was just out of control. There's only one way you can control Xenia, and it's basically you just put it in the tank and then just put nothing else in the tank, and it won't go outside the tank.
Yeah.
But everything in the tank is fair game.
Yeah, indeed. But it'll look cool, so you know.
Yeah, I saw someone posted on the group there saying, "Why do you have Xenia as your background?" It's a nice coral, but it's just a pain in the ass for 99% of the people. That's it.
I've said 1,000 times before. I love pulsing Xenia.
Yeah,
I just don't want it in my tank.
Yeah,
but I had it in my first tank, and it was one of those corals that you could just sit by your tank for 10 minutes, a solid 10 minutes, just staring at this one coral, just gently swaying and gently.
Well, don't you worry. I've just worked out the next free coral I'm going to give you.
Oh,
you're
gosh.
You're going to get a whole bag full of it.
I think I know what it is. But there we go. So that is the Prestige Reef Fish of the Week and the Prestige Reef Coral of the Week. And that can only mean one thing. It's the news. Papers. And because it gets quiet in the summer, the news is a little bit dry, but there is still some cool stuff that I thought was well worth sharing. First thing, and this is possibly, well, having said that, it's a quiet week in the news. This might be the most exciting thing to happen in the history of reef keeping. I don't know if I can oversell this.
I think you're overselling this.
No, I don't think it's possible to oversell this.
This is obviously a joke.
No, seriously. This is
really
Reef Dork members.
Okay, this is a joke.
No, this is serious. Can now get early access to all my videos. Well, on the main channel anyway. I've tried to do that before, but for YouTube it doesn't work. But they've updated it now, and they've got a feature whereby you can allow access early. So the second I finish a YouTube video, which is normally on a Wednesday or a Thursday before it goes live, if you're a member, you can see it. It says you need to have your notifications turned on. If you're not a member, you won't see it at all. But if you're a member and you've got your notifications turned on, you'll be able to see the videos early, which is cool.
How much does it cost to be a member in Q?
In Q, zero Q actually, no
zero
Qs. I do not ask for any Qs whatsoever.
There you go.
So that's how good.
Chris Lawson. I don't know if that's true, but he's actually put what that means.
I think that's an internet thing. Kez Tal. I think it's a it comes up with a bird. I think that's a thing. I don't think that's a proper currency. But anyway, what was I going to say? Oh, hang on. Look, Q looks like Q is the Guatemalan quetzal. Oh, right.
There you go.
That's not a shop in Guatemala, is it? Anyway, whatever. I need to Google it. But yeah, so YouTube members for Reef Dork can now get early access to videos. So that's cool. Second piece of news, not quite as exciting, but I posted this on my Instagram page this week, And it was there's a website called Social Blade where you can go on and you can look back and see, you can look at people's stats on YouTube. So you can look at how many views they get, how many subs they gain, all these sorts of things. It tells you how much money they earn, but it gives you a really broad bracket. It'll be like between £1 and £1 million.
Yeah, I know.
And it's all, and I've looked at it for my own channel, and it's way off. So that's unreliable. But the thing that it can tell you is all publicly available data, which is subs and views, and that is accurate. So what I did was I put together a poll, not a poll. I put together a table, and I had to update this 3 times. Because I put together the top 15 most viewed channels in the aquarium, saltwater aquarium hobby for the last year, so 2022, and then someone said, oh, what about Parker's Reef? I was like, oh, I forgot about Parker's
I noticed that I moved down on the list. And I was like, I'm sure I saw this list the other day, but I seem to be lower than I was before.
Well, you moved down further because someone then said, what about Fragbox corals? I was like, oh, I forgot about Fragbox.
There you go.
Fragbox is really popular.
Yeah.
Really popular.
What can I expect? I post once a month now these days, so...
I know. But you're still, given that you don't post very often, you're still up there. So would you like to see the top 15
by how many views that I got? It was like 800 and something thousand, wasn't it?
840,362 from January 22 to January 23.
Yeah.
So the most watched channel is Bulk Reef Supply, perhaps unsurprising. Second most watched, Danny's Aquarium. Danny, I saw him in the chat earlier. And actually this year so far, Danny's is the most watched channel by a mile.
Yeah.
But that includes shorts because he's he's done a few shorts that have done really well. And I can't exclude that. But anyway, he's the most watched channel, including shorts. Third is Reef Builders. Fourth is the Old Marine Depot channel that I think is called Bulk Reef Supply. I can't remember now. One of them is called BRS TV Investigates. The other one I think is called Bulk Reef Supply. But they haven't uploaded anything on that for a good few months. So it might be that channel starts to drop off a little bit. And then number 5 is the best channel in the world, Reef Dork. Thanks very much. Number 6.
When you say best, you mean the 5th best.
No. It's the best. It's just that people haven't realised yet, and people are starting to click on. And then eventually they'll be like, oh, no, this is better than BRS.
True, so, I understand,
and then we got number 6 is Fragbox. Really, really high up Fragbox. They've done really well. 2.5 million views is no mean feat. Number 7, Sea Friendly Reef. He was a lot higher before. I thought he'd be higher. Number 8, Tidal Gardens. Number 9, Reef Dudes. Number 10, Inappropriate Reefer. Number 11, saltwateraquarium.com. Number 12, World Champion, Parker's Reef. Number 13, Mad Hatter's Reef. Number 14, Maylev's Reef. And number 15, Prestige Reef.
Yeah, I came last.
But the one thing I thought with this is I looked down this list and I was like, this is kind of an indication of the state of the hobby for YouTubers, because you look down the list and you're like, well, BRS2 has stopped uploading, hasn't uploaded anything on that second channel for months. So that might fold that channel. They'll keep it alive, but they might use it. They might have another project for it later down the line, but they might fold that. And then further down the list, Reef Dudes and Inappropriate Reefer have both got kids, so they can't upload as often as they used to. Saltwateraquarium.com, actually, no, that's still going. Maylev is now a shop. Oh, well, actually, no, to be fair. No, Maylev, I think Maylev was massively popular a while ago, but has dropped off a little bit, which is why he's down. I think 5 years ago, he would have been top 3 maybe. But he does less of the really popular videos now. Mad Hatter's Reef is now a shop. That's what I meant to say. He runs a shop.
Yeah.
He used to do all top 10s and they were really popular. And then Prestige Reef is now a shop as well.
Yeah. Someone's Woody's Reef just said that Aaron's Aquarium must be number 16. Actually, I believe Woody's Reef is right.
No, actually, he's dropped down. He had about 500,000 views despite having not uploaded a video.
I thought it was 800,000. I looked.
That was for last year. I posted 2021 and then 2022. 2021, he had 800,000, which is a lot for a channel that hadn't uploaded to you. 2022, 500,000, which is still no mean feat.
Yeah, to put no videos up, I'm sorry, like. He was one below me in 2000, whenever you said 2002, didn't you, or 2001?
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, I've only just overtaken him in terms of overall views in the channel in the last month or two.
Yeah.
And he stopped uploading 3 years ago.
Well, that says something. If 3 years later, people like 500,000 people are still watching, that says something.
Indeed. But before we get onto that in detail, Reef Bum people asked about, and this is the thing. So what about Reef Bum? And you could have 100 people saying, what about X channel? What about Y channel? What about Coral Euphoria? All these. There are loads. This isn't a measure of how good a channel is. It's just data I put together because I found it interesting.
Yeah.
Reef Bum was at about 500,000, I think. So he was outside. He might have been a bit higher. Coral Euphoria, he was at about 500,000 as well. I thought he'd be higher, but he doesn't really focus on it. He goes for quality, not quantity. So he uploads occasionally. So there were a few others that were outside the top list. And that's what so Malev has been doing live streams recently and short, like 2-minute vlogs. He's been like doing like a series of vlogs. So that's what I mean by he's kind of dropped off. But there were loads of other channels that were around there. What's the other one? Fish of Hex. That used to be 15, but it got bumped off because I had to update Fragbox and Parker's Reef and all that.
Do you think there is a life span of these channels? And we discussed this yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah.
Where, not in detail, but do you think there's a lifespan where you go for it, you really, really go? Even me, I was posting every single week religiously for years, because of the treadmill that YouTube puts you on, where it feels like you have to post, and then it does you in mentally, and then you just go, I've had enough now. And even for you pushed it hard for years, and you said, I don't have that same feeling at the moment because of the summer.
It's not. There's a couple of things to that. So for a start, until this year, in fact, no, last year the channel still grew really well. But it didn't grow as well as I thought it would do, and I was frustrated because the year before it was exploding, and it was like the 20th biggest channel around, but it was like the 3rd most watched. It was just doing really well. And then last year that slowed. It still did well, but it slowed. And I was like, what can I do? So this year I went down to one video a fortnight rather than one video a week, because the plan was I'll spend more time on them. I'll think about the content and think about really important things like behind the scenes YouTube stuff, like keywords that you put in the description and all those sorts of things. I'll think about the thumbnail. I'll think about everything, all the YouTube analytics stuff. And I'll spend more time on it, and I'll make better videos, more watchable videos. But actually that hasn't panned out the way I wanted it to. And it's not had the desired effect. And actually, if anything, it's done worse.
So going back to the question, do you think that a lot of these channels have a lifespan? Because if you look at it, Inappropriate doesn't post as often. I don't post as often. Mr. Saltwater Tank, I don't think posts ever. He was like the original one.
Yeah, he doesn't. But that's where I was going. You're absolutely right. So and now what I found is I'm still doing one a fortnight, but I'm not doing this 2 weeks constant working on a video. I'm now having half a week off, and then doing a week and a half on a video, because I'm getting to the point now where it's like I can't keep doing it. I used to work in London every day of the week before COVID, 5 days a week, and I'd get home 7, half 7, and I'd work on videos every evening till 10, half 10, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I don't know how I did that.
I don't know how Mrs. Reef Dork part with you.
I know that too, but I've now got to the point where, having been doing that for 5 years, it's too much. So there's no way. If I was I now work from home 3 days a week, but if I was working in the office 5 days a week, there's no way I could do that. So they do, and you do have a lifespan. And particularly I found when I've got to the point where I'm plateauing a little bit, you just think, so this is actually never going to be quite what you thought it might be. And I'm not going to drop it. It's still going to keep going. No. And I haven't lost the passion for it. I still like it.
And I can't drop it, so I'll still be going.
Exactly. But I think you're right. They do have a life cycle. And in certain circumstances, it'll be you kind of burn out a little bit or whatever. Other circumstances, there'll be things like Inappropriate Reefer or Reef Do to have a life event that changes things.
Yeah. Or me.
And they take a step back. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But there'll be all those sorts of things. So.
Yeah, do you think the reason for that, I know this is nothing about the live stream, it's just interesting, is because of the expectations at first that you have with owning a YouTube channel, is that you can make loads of money, and then 5 years in you realize that you can't make loads of money?
I don't think most people, I didn't ever expect I'd make a load of money. I thought I'd make some money, and I do make some money. And I probably make more money than I thought I would.
But is it worth the effort? Because sometimes the money you could earn, you could be working, I know, a shop or anywhere.
Yeah, it is worth the effort because I enjoy it at the end of the day. So this is like, I could go and earn more money doing stuff working in my spare time, but I don't do it for that. I do it because I enjoy it. But although I do earn more money out of it than I thought I would, I spend almost all of that back on the hobby. So I buy cameras, microphones, camera sliders. So I invest it all back in. So I don't make a profit as such. I don't come out with cash at the end of the day that I can spend on my house or, that sort of stuff. So, but I think so. But do people think they can make a load of money? I mean, if you do,
I did.
If my channel was,
I was hopeful.
Maybe if my channel was the size of Bulk Reef Supply, had that many subscribers and was getting that many views, 12 million views a year, I still wouldn't be able to quit my job and do that full time.
Of course.
So that's how little money it makes. So if you want to pay for a bit of salt and that sort of stuff, then wicked, do it. You can get that.
Yeah.
If you do it well. But if you're thinking this is going to be my full-time job, go and review cars, or get a kitten and post photos of it scratching your sofa, and
or get a job working at McDonald's, because trust me, you'll be able to pay for that salt much quicker than with a YouTube video.
Indeed, yeah. So it's a labor of love, basically. Yeah. So, but there is a cycle, and most channels get to the point where they kind of fade out a little bit. I hope Reef Dork won't die. It might do at some point, but I hope it's not for 10 years. And maybe I've never thought, I'm going to do this till I'm 50, 60, 70, whatever. But if I was 80 years old, people probably aren't going to want to be watching what I've got to say. But, I've got plans for it to end. But
you could be, when you're 80 years old, you could be the Mike Paletta of the industry. You or the Sanjay Joshi. You could be any of these people. They'd be like, that guy knows.
It's probably I would never be that level, because they're a lot more sciencey than I am. But
they were never that level until they learnt.
Maybe
so they probably never thought they would be that level.
But there you go. But anyway, but I think there absolutely is a life cycle. And Bubbly Reef has just joined. Mr. Start, don't stop. That would be heartbreaking. Well, thank you for a start, but I'm not about to stop. But it's just I think there is a life cycle. It gets to a point when you just think, okay, this isn't the dream I thought it was. And I still think there's a chance that it might make the channel might get to the point where, especially if I was sponsored, ideally by a non-aquarium company, where I could get to the point where I could chop 2 days of work off my working week. So I could work 3 days a week with my proper job and do 2 days a week full time as a YouTuber, part time.
Sponsoring weeks.
Yeah. That could work. But
or
even
Raid Shadow Legends. Those are the people that usually come up say when on.
Well, do you know what? Inappropriate Reefers nailed this, because he's got sponsors now who do. And they're not aquarium. That is because if you're sponsored, if I was sponsored by Kessel, I joke about being sponsored by Kessel from time to time because I love them. So it'd be very easy for me to say I'm sponsored by Kessel. They're brilliant, because they are genuinely brilliant. That's my opinion. But nonetheless, that's a conflict of interest, and there's bias. Whereas so Moki is now sponsored by various companies. I don't know if he works with an agency or whatever, but he gets sponsor messages from. There was a company who sells like patches of land in. Or I can't remember what it was, but these random companies that sponsor me, and that's perfect, because you just do a 30-second ad read in the middle of a video and say, look, this video is supported by, I don't know, what's the Spotify, for example. Download Spotify. Look, use the code Reef Dork 10 for a 10% discount. Try that on Spotify. If it works, I want.
See if it works.
Commission
and then on Spotify, they'll be going, "Why do these people keep typing this discount code in? Who is this Reef Dork?" And then all of a sudden you'll get a sponsorship deal. Oh look,
sponsored by Brill Cream. Someone had to say it, didn't they?
Someone, look, I don't mention his hair anymore because he's very sensitive about it.
I am not. But so Beckham had shaved his head and he got Brill Cream sponsorship, didn't he? So just saying.
Well, there you go.
But yeah. It was. But anyway, so basically, it was. Inappropriate Reef has got sponsorship from. And I've been interrupted because I've seen a super chat. James, thank you very much. £10, £9.99. If you stop, I'll have to talk to the other half on a Sunday. Please don't let that happen. Yeah, I know. I mean, obviously, I say my missus started listening to these podcasts, and I don't know what you're talking about because my missus is perfect. So
Is it? I was talking to Marina about that. Is that because you listen to them together in the car, or is she going?
No. She just started listening to them. She listened to the one when I came back from the honeymoon. I talked about the snorkeling.
Yeah,
but she just.
Then she realised that you were actually interesting. Kind of.
It's taken 8 years of talking. It's like, well, he's quite boring, but actually he's interesting when he talks about fish. But so hello, darling, love you. Anyway, so. But basically, I think Moki's nailed it, and that is the way to do it: is to to get sponsorship by a non-aquarium company. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
The news is going on for a long time. We've got more news though, and the next piece of news is a Scopas tank, a $30,000.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
Scopas
Oh no, not that one. No.
This is, I've managed to do some triangulation. This is a photo from Reef Builder. So it was a Jeremy Gay article, friend of the show, Jeremy Gay, who posted this photo. I didn't read the whole thing because I don't. And I think this is a stock photo, but I've done some triangulation and I'm just going to find it. And I reckon this is the fish in question. This is from the Tropical Marine Centre Instagram page.
Yeah, that is a nice fish.
And they've said magnificent tricolor Scopas tang, and that to me is, I think, because the Reef Builder article talks about that. So I don't know if that's it. And the Reef Builder article said dollars, and obviously this wouldn't have been sold in dollars. I assume it wouldn't anyway. But that is potentially a $30,000 fish.
Yeah, it is. I didn't know it was a Scopas. I saw that on their page. I assumed it was a yellow tang, just because normally the yellows are the ones that are white. But if it's a Scopas, it's a Scopas. You get it's probably the same with all zebrazomas. You get weird colors in them. So Polo's Reef one is no longer like. You see his Desjardins.
Is he just looking normal now?
It's mostly not. I saw a picture of it when it was first collected, and it was so white. And then I saw in a video recently, and it's like nothing. It's nowhere near as it was before. So if you got that sort of money, you can take the risk.
I'll come back onto that in a sec. Another super chat from Bubbly Reef, $11.99, no stopping. Well, thank you very much. You guys made me choke up, man. It genuinely means a lot to me. I like that. It's just, anyway, we've said this before. Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate the love. And the other thing I was going to say on that was, so I generally don't like those, like, what are they called? There's a word for them. The aberrant. Whatever
those are the different. Those are the ones that are usually blue.
The funny coloured. I don't like funny coloured fish like that. That are just like they're natural freaks. But I actually think that's quite cool. Whether it keeps those colours and if you spent 30 grand on it and then a year later it's a Scopas tang.
Oh, that would hurt. That would hurt. I like that fish I showed you. You didn't like it. You know the Regal Angel that I sent you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, that was horrible.
It was a Regal Angel that had no blue on it. So I quite liked it. It was, it was. I just like anything that's a bit different. But what I've noticed is it's usually the tangs which change back color. But I don't think I have actually seen a Coral Beauty, which was an insane coloration, and then like not long afterwards, it completely changed back to a normal Coral Beauty.
Did you see the tiger tail Coral Beauty the other day? I can't find that photo.
I think so. Yeah.
It was quite cool, but it was a little bit like, I don't know how expensive they are, but it was like, it just had the body patterns had spread to its tail.
Yeah.
And it's the sort of thing, you've got to be a proper fish nerd like us to notice that. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know, anyway. What was I going to say? So, and someone posted they went to Abyss and saw the Yerple tang. James saw the Yerple tang.
It looks great. Oh, that's not a good sign, is it?
Yeah, I suppose that. I just imagine if that was proper half purple, half yellow. God, that'd be cool. But
I know.
That's a shame. That's
wishful thinking, I think.
But mate, it's still quite young. It was only, I think that was probably a year ago.
Yeah, but they usually get their colours quicker than a year. Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the fish in the hobby are, I think, only a year old, and they're all fully coloured. Like, you know, when like that sort of sized fish, when they're sort of like this big, you know, it's not a very good explanation of this big for the people that are listening on Spotify, but
an inch.
Yeah. So I think they're not very old, those fish. Most fish in the hobby are under a year, I believe.
Indeed. But there you go. So, but yeah, cool fish. If you got 30 grand, give me a shout and I'll introduce you. Even though it's got nothing to do with me, and
it's got nothing to do with you, and you don't
nothing at all.
You don't even know where it is.
It's like a tropical marine centre.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah, true.
Yeah, so I'll hook you up. You give me 10 grand as a finder's fee, and I'll pass you on their phone number. Don't look on their website and find the phone number because that's it's not on. Last piece of news. What keeps you awake at night, Ryan? I'll tell you what it is. Nudibranchs.
That wasn't what it was, but okay.
Have you ever heard of goniopora eating nudibranchs?
I have not, actually.
not surprised because the Reef Builders article says they were first described in 2020, so recently, and they found. I mean, they're funny looking things, and these I don't know if this is eggs or whatever. That not I can't see a goniopora there anyway, but apparently they're a goniopora eating nudibranchs, which I'd never heard of. I've heard of montanudes, zoa eating nudies, all those sorts of things, but never gone. There's probably a nudibranch that eats everything, but
they must be rare if they've only just been discovered in 2020, and we've been collecting gonies for years. Like, then they can't be that common, can they?
No, and I've never seen anybody posting on a Facebook group or forum or whatever. No. I've got gonies eating, nudies eating my gonny. What do I do?
So well, I will say I'm not surprised when corals come in from the wild, especially when they come from Indonesia. So, unless you're importing boxes of corals, people wouldn't know this. Corals that come from Australia are always like really nicely trimmed. Everything is like perfect, and then you open the box, there's no pests or anything. Corals that come from Indonesia, it's like it's actually really interesting because you open the box and there's like this weird algae on it. You're like, never seen this algae before, and there's some like pest, or not pest, but like all sorts of things that you've just never seen.
I do.
Do I know why?
Yeah, I think you will do.
I actually don't know why. I'm assuming
because from Australia, it's done by weight now. It used to be done by numbers, but now it's done by weight. So if they have rock on a coral, the base of a coral, it costs them money.
Yeah.
So they cut it all off.
Oh, so I didn't know that.
I presume it's not the case in Indonesia. I only know that's why you get aquos from Australia with nothing on them.
Yeah, they're always like just literally nothing,
and they look wicked because of it.
Yeah.
So,
but all the corals are the same. So I just assumed Australia cared more. I assume the corals from Australia are a higher cost, and whenever you pay more money for something, you expect a higher quality. And I just assumed that's what it was, but obviously I've learned something today, which is one of the reasons I love these chats, because I learn as well.
Okay, yeah, everybody learns. But there we go. So that I think it's fair to say that concludes the news. Which means for the 5 people who have hung around this long,
the 5 people.
We're now going to talk about the main thing. So I'm going to make a mental note, 1 hour 32. I'll put that in the timeline later. Now we're going to talk about what happened to Aaron's aquarium. And I'm going to repeat what I said at the start because there'll be people who've joined lately. So this is not like one of the things that happened was he had a shop that didn't work out, and he went into business with someone and it didn't work out. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of that. I don't know the details. And and I've seen that there were a couple of posts in the chat saying, so just saying critical things about it and saying nasty things and saying, I bet Reef Dork will delete this. And I did delete it, actually, not because Michael Aarons is my mate. I considered him kind of like a YouTube friend-ish, but I only met him once. So not really. I've not stayed in touch with him since. I didn't have his phone number when we were YouTube mates. I met up once. But like Goalkeepers Union, I'm biased towards him. But at the end of the day, the purpose of this is not to have drama and have people saying, oh, it's just throwing around slander and libel, basically, all that sort of stuff. It's just to tell you what happened to the channel. So if there are further comments like that, I'll just remove them and block them.
Yeah.
So that's not
because you're a solicitor, aren't you?
Well, I'm not. I'm a non-practicing solicitor. I was.
Yes, so if anyone knows what libel is,
I did spend 10 years working in litigation. So
Yeah. So. But
if you want to fight legal proceedings, then
Although you, as you said, you didn't assume that Michael was one of your friends. Michael actually was, or even to this day is one of my friends. I heard from him a little while ago, probably a few months ago. Actually, it would have been probably 6 months ago. I got on really well with Mike. Every time, if I went up there, I'd see him, and if he came down here, we'd go out to dinner.
Yeah,
never had any issues with him at all. I think he did some great things. For the hobby, I do. I think anyone that is out there educating, bringing new people into the hobby, except you, because you know me, I hate to give you any praise, is doing something good for the industry, and that to some extent includes, as I said, it includes, unless people are out there giving absolutely false information, anyone who has a YouTube channel, whether they've got 5 followers or 50,000. is doing good for the hobby, as far as I'm concerned.
There's a caveat with that, because some people will say, and they would say this of me, I'm sure. Some people would say it of you. Some people would say it of Michael Aarons.
Whoa. No one would say of me. I'm not sure what you're going to say.
There will always be someone who says, "Oh, I remember one time they said this." Like people of me would say he encouraged people not to quarantine. That's not on.
Yeah.
So there will always be videos or things that people say that some people didn't like. But for 99% of it, first thing to say is Michael was brilliant. I found him a really interesting person. He did what I could never do with YouTube videos. So when I set out, I tried to just turn the camera on and just talk. And when
it's
I do
so
that,
hard.
so I'm better now. But when I did that at first, it was like, "Hello, I'm Alex. What did I tell you my name was Alex? I think I did." And he was like, he'd turn the camera and was like, "Yo guys, what's going on now?" Just instantly, really. And he would talk, he'd do the old and a couple of times, but he would flow, and he was just like invigorating to watch. He was just an upbeat person, and I enjoyed his videos. He made videos that weren't really aimed at me. By the time I got into them, he was aiming more at kind of the beginner end of the hobby, and I was kind of more intermediate. So we'd talk about videos on how to set up a tank or whatever, and I still watch all of those. So I didn't find necessarily the content that informative. It wasn't like he was always telling me stuff I didn't know. Sometimes he would do, of course, because everybody has got something new. Yeah. But I just found him I just enjoyed watching his videos. I just thought they were good videos, and for the most part, good information as well. I'm sure there'll be some people who say, "Oh yeah, but he said this or whatever." But he was a really good YouTuber, and that's reflected by the fact that, and as recently as 2021, he was the 15th most watched YouTuber in the world.
Still getting 820,000 views or something.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the year before last.
Despite having not made a video in 3 years. But and the reason that I'm making this video is because someone posted on the Facebook page, what happened to Aaron's Aquarium?
Yeah.
And I see that all the time. And he kind of just disappeared, and he didn't make a goodbye video or anything like that. And if you look around, there's no videos on the internet that say, "This is what happened to Aaron's Aquarium." So what I wanted to do was make a video. I thought about dedicating like a 5-minute video where I talk about it, but I just want to do it this way. It's no big thing. So now there is a video. If you search "what happened to Aaron's Aquarium," you'll click on this video. You'll see me at the start saying, "Stop, go to 1 minute 32 of the timeline." And
1 hour 32.
1 hour 30.
Yeah.
And then you'll find out. So that was the background of him. Basically, he was the top YouTuber in the country. He's still got a lot more subscribers than I have. I don't know.
Me too.
He's still gaining subscribers.
I know, it's insane.
And this was on the Social Blade website that I used. I looked at that recently. He's more or less leveled off now. So he's not. But until recently, he was gaining a lot more than you would think. Because most channels, when they stop uploading, they don't tend to gain new subs. And actually, after a point, they start losing subs because people realize they're not coming back. But he's still gaining. He's just about plateaued now. But he must be at 67,000 subscribers, something like that.
It is interesting because there's a few people in the comment section saying, "Look, he actually was the person who got me into." I just want to answer a very quick question. Yes, I do remember Vegas. I do remember the meal, and that day in Vegas was one of the best days of my life. So I will always remember that day. So I genuinely loved going to Vegas. But anyway, I digressed. I was just answering a question. But going back to obviously what you said. No, going back to what I said a second ago. There are people literally in the comments now saying he got you into the hobby, and anyone that gets anyone else into the hobby. Yeah, that's another thing. The Friday night live stream. Every Friday, people would sit and watch the same as this. Except we didn't have to do any work. Anyone who gets anyone else into the hobby, whether you introduce your friend into the hobby, whether you have a YouTube channel or you're helping people on Instagram or Facebook or ultimately anything, you're doing good for the hobby, because the more people that are in the hobby, the better it is. It's also the more people are in the hobby, is actually it also protects the hobby more, because you're never going to shut down the dog industry, are you? Or the cat industry, because there's too many people that love dogs and cats. The more people that love marine fish, it's going to be harder to shut down. It's as simple as that. Exactly. And that is a threat for our hobby at all times.
Yeah, it is.
Even to this day, like that you saw last week, you mentioned it. There are people in the pet industry working to do things which are harmful for our industry. So
what I know, people always, I've gone through some of his old videos before this stream just to have a look and see what people were saying, and almost everybody was saying things like, "Oh, any update from you? How's things going? Would love to have you back. Miss you so much." All these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And I miss him as having him, because if he was still around, he'd be on this stream. If he was still a YouTuber, he'd be on the stream every week with us, and it would be wicked.
we met at Coral Freaks, didn't we? And all three of us went out to dinner, and that was one of the days that I remember. And
he was instantly likable. I instantly felt like he was, a really nice bloke, and I'd get on with him.
do you know what I will always remember? So obviously, look, it's well known that I had a previous channel. It was mentioned earlier where my partner was the face of the channel, and during that. So we would talk to all different people, and Mike was one of the people. And instead of being annoyed, he literally said to me, I remember this. He went, "Right, we'll draw a line here. If you're a nice person, we'll we can have this friendship. And if you're not a nice person, then we won't. It's as simple as that." So I went and met him there was a show in London. It was and literally I shook his hand, and it was like from that moment on, we were actually good friends. And he was like, he didn't care. He went, "You're like, that's it." So, and it wasn't the same for everyone.
No, I'm sure.
But I understand why. But as I said, I met him quite a few times, and even to this day, if he called me, I'd answer the phone. He asked me a question about air conditioning the other day. So
did he?
Yeah, he did. So I answered him. So, and the only thing I wouldn't want him to see this live stream and think anything negative, because that wasn't what this was about. And if he did decide to come back, I did speak to him in depth once. I spoke to him probably about an hour on the phone, and I just said, "Do you miss doing this?" And he said, "I'll be honest with you, like there are times, but generally no." Exactly. Remember, I spoke to him probably a year ago. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was something along the lines of, "I have no interest. I've sold my camera equipment and everything. I have no interest in coming back."
So that's it. So Quack to Blue said, is he ever coming back? And the answer is no, he's not ever coming back. And that's the first thing I think. Oh, well, who knows? I mean, I've not spoken to him for 4 years.
I'm sure there are thousands of people that would love to have him back.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you, I'll tell the truth. I'm not going to watch his channel any more than I watch anyone else's channel.
Yeah.
I did, in terms of someone that I was very impressed. He came to my house once, and he tried to make me do what he does. You know, where you just put the camera on, you have to talk.
Yeah, just talk.
It made me, you can see in the video he did, it made me absolutely crumble.
I remember that video.
It did. I could not, all I had to do was stand there and talk about the Red Sea tank. And it literally made me crumble, because at the time I was only doing scripted work. And that was when I realized it's a lot bloody harder to do what he does.
And he was good at that, and I just can't do that. And he was the compere at Coral Freaks, in fact.
Yeah.
And he was which again, he was brilliant at it. But going on to what happened with him. So he was doing really well with the channel, and in the end, he ended up setting up a shop, called Aaron's Aquarium. It was in Stoke-on-Trent, or just outside Stoke-on-Trent, I think. And he set that up around the time COVID hit, probably the same sort of time you did. And I remember watching a video. Oh, was it? Yeah. So I remember watching a video when he was like, it had been up running for 6 months or something, and COVID hit, and he was like, okay, so I've just sunk my entire, I've quit my job, and I've worked in this industry. I've set up this shop now, and now it's COVID. So, but he came through that, of course, and COVID was very good for some people. But before that, he worked for BC UK, which I think is the max spec distributor for the UK. I might have got that wrong. But he worked for them. I don't know, marketing or whatever he did. I forget what he did, but he did work in the industry a bit on the back of the YouTube channel. So he got a job in the industry because he was a truck driver before that.
Yeah. And
then he got this job. Well, he sort of set up a business effectively as a shop, and he went into business with someone else, who I don't really know the relationship. I don't know how it works, so I'm not going to go into any details of that. But he went into business with someone else. And ran this shop, and I think my understanding was that he ran the shop, and I say that because I saw videos where he was always there, and he was like on the live stream, he'd be selling stuff, and he was the one I always saw. So maybe his business partner did more in the shop. I don't know. All I'm saying is that
I never went, and I'm assuming you never went either.
I wanted to go, but it was too far, and COVID.
Me too. We're us Southerners. We don't do well in the north, do we?
I know, exactly. Yeah. But so he started a shop. COVID hit, and various other things happened. And after a while, the shop didn't work out, basically. But I don't know why. I don't know the background behind it. But ultimately, the shop didn't work out.
Yeah.
And he posted a video. He posted a message on Facebook. The last thing I saw of him, and I've not spoken to him since then. And I didn't speak to him at the time. We weren't that close, unfortunately. But he posted a message on Facebook that was quite emotional, to be honest. It was, I don't know if it was almost like, and I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, but it was almost like he kind of had a little bit of a mental breakdown. I think maybe that's too strong, but he was obviously, one of the things that I did notice was that he'd been burning the candle at both ends, right?
Yes.
So there was, before that happened, I messaged both of you. I wasn't really mates with you then either. But I'd met you both. I'd messaged both of you and said,
back when your life was much worse, wasn't it?
I know, exactly. Before you came into my life, I messaged both of you and I said, do you want to do a collaboration? And I can't remember what it was about, but it was, I had an idea for a collaboration, and you just had to do a 60-second talk, or what, I can't remember what it was, but anyway, you messaged back and said, sorry, I'm too busy. Michael didn't message back. And then a month later he did, or maybe it's other, and then he said, I'm really sorry. I'm struggling to keep up with my own channel, and which was basically the same as you. And that was the first time I thought, actually, so he's pedaling quite hard for this. And actually it kind of dawned on me a little bit that running a shop is bloody hard. Retail in the UK is extremely hard.
It would be very, very hard work. I think it would be long hours for not a huge amount of money.
He was there late. I saw that a lot. And so he was doing the channel at the same time. So actually in the build up to that, and it was never obvious because he was always upbeat, but in the build up to that, he was always, I think he was quite stressed. You didn't ever notice it, but this Facebook post that he posted was kind of the culmination of that. And this was public information. He posted it publicly. I don't have a screenshot of it. I didn't take a screenshot at the time, and it was years ago anyway. And his Facebook page has since gone. His channel is still there, of course, because it makes a bit of money and there's some good videos on there, so he's kept it up. But he posted quite an emotional post on Facebook. Was it a video? I think it was a video.
It was a video. I'm pretty sure it was a video.
Basically, it all got too much, and things hadn't worked out with the shop as well. So the long and the short of it is, what happened to Aaron's Aquarium? He started in the hobby as a YouTuber. He got to the point where he worked in the industry. He then got to the point where he set up his own shop, and it didn't work out, and it all got a bit much. And I think I've seen some chat about he and his business partner fell out, because at the same time of him posting that video, I think his business partner posted something similar, or posted his own version of events or whatever. I've got no interest in going into the details of that. His business partner actually messaged me before the stream to say, look, I want to talk to you because I want you to know what happened. I'm not interested. This isn't about what happened to the business. This is about what happened to Aaron's Aquarium YouTube channel. So, and the reality is that one person says one thing, another person says something. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. But I don't know, and I don't care what happened. I'm not interested in it in the slightest bit.
The only thing that I know absolutely 100% certainty is that it would be heartbreaking to two things. Firstly, very publicly set up a shop. Like, it was heartbreaking to set up a tank that didn't do well, as in like where I lost a few fish, 5 fish I lost. That was heartbreaking enough. To set up a shop very publicly to, for whatever reason, not do well would be heartbreaking. And the second thing, setting up something that you're so passionate about, that you want to work so much. So if the coral farm failed for me now, it would be devastating, because this is like a combination of my adult life's work, if you see what I mean. I started keeping fish when I was 18. I think when I was 21, I realized that people could sell coral online. And then I went, you know what? 10 years later or 12 years later, I remember saying when I was 21, I'm going to do this one day. And it took all of that time to get to this stage. And if in a year's time it failed, it would be devastating for me. And I can assure you, I'd bloody disappear, because I wouldn't want to be coming out going, by the way, it failed.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that.
And so very, very public downfall, effectively. And whatever happened behind the scenes, like I said, I genuinely not interested, don't care. It didn't work out.
Look, businesses are hard anyway. They're hard during COVID. They're hard just to run on a day-to-day basis. So it's not even. There are literally millions of people that don't do well in business when they try. So even that in itself,
90% of small businesses fail in their first year.
What I had this discussion with someone who came to the farm today, not about this, but just to say the people that truly fail, the people that think about doing something and then they never do it because they never tried.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't. I think a shop would be too hard for me. Not too like. I think what I'm doing now is perfect for me. I wouldn't mind owning a shop that I managed, but I wouldn't want to be there on like. I'm not sure I'm a overly people person. Well, I'm not sure. As in, I'm not sure that I could be with people all day, every day. I think it would exhaust me. Is the honest answer. I think I have great admiration for anyone that owns or works in a shop. I genuinely do.
Completely. I couldn't do it. And people have asked me before if I'd do it. I wouldn't want to do it. But I haven't got what it takes. The other thing I want to say, though, is one thing I see quite often, someone, Techers Reef, at the very start of this stream, posted this as well. And I've seen it posted on his channel before. A lot of people said he went bankrupt. I'm going to prove to you that that is not true. And I'm going to do it live.
There you go.
There is in the UK, and I know this because I was a litigation solicitor for 10 years, by the way.
Yeah, very important. Very people should fear you, shouldn't they?
You should fear me, yeah, because come at the king, you best not miss. But anyway, so I used to use this website all the time because if there's no point suing someone if they haven't got any money. So there's a website called the Individual Insolvency Register. It's run by the Insolvency Service, which is, guess what? The Insolvency Service is what looks after all bankrupt matters in terms of individuals and corporate bodies as well. And you can search anybody's name. Should we search your name, see if you're bankrupt?
I'm not, but you can if you want, but I'm definitely not.
And I searched this yesterday just to check. So it might have updated, who knows, but it's pretty unlikely. Michael's name, his name was Michael Aarons. Okay, Aaron's Aquarium. Aaron's, it wasn't. I always used to think his first name was Aaron, but it wasn't. His name was Michael Aarons. So if you put in surname, and I'm not going to put in his first name because I'm going to keep the search as broad as possible, and I want to make sure this is no funny business. There are two people who are registered on the insolvency website as bankrupt, both voluntary bankruptcies. Astra Aronia and Juwon Aarons. So Astra Aarons and Juwon Aarons. Neither of those are Michael Aarons. And if you're thinking, oh, you know what? I bet that was his. I bet that Michael wasn't his real name. This guy Juwon Aarons was based in Tonbridge, which is down in Kent.
Oh, you really have gone into this, haven't you?
This was my bread and butter. I use this website all the time. So that is not. And if you're thinking, oh, Astra Aronia Aarons, that must be him. For a start, this guy or girl is older than Michael Aarons was. And for a finish, where's this? This guy's in London, female. She's in London. It's a female. So there you go. So that puts that to bed. He didn't get made bankrupt. And that is, by the way, one last thing I'll show you as well on this website. This shows you. So these people, this guy was made bankrupt November 2019. Okay, which was before the time Michael Aarons dropped out of the business. And so what that tells you is, it's if he'd been made bankrupt, his name would be on that list. Okay. So that's why I'm telling you that, because I see that all the time, and I just think that if that was me, it would bug me that people were saying that. So Michael Aarons was not made bankrupt, but whatever. Obviously, I'm sure he lost money. I don't know. I've got no idea. All I know was that it was quite a stressful ending for him. And because of that, he's not coming back. And and that you said earlier, and someone asked in the questions, is he coming back? I would be amazed if he came. I would love it. And personally, I think 99% of people in the hobby would welcome him back with open arms. And I would support him 100%, but it's not going to happen. He might be watching this video. Hey, mate. But
I hope, look, as I said, I hope he is to some extent, because you can see the people in the comments that he is inspired. I'm obviously, as I said, I like him. You like him. The only thing that I will say, if your channel disappeared overnight like that, gone, I reckon that it would hurt probably for the first 2 weeks, and after that, it would give you this unbelievable level of freedom. And do you know how I know that? Because when the channel closed for me, the original channel, which disappeared for 6 months, I had this level of freedom. Now, don't get me wrong, I came back. But it gave me a level of like just I have no responsibility.
Mm.
I don't have to put a video out every week. And then
Yeah.
I realized I didn't have anything to do with that time anyway. So
Yeah.
might as well bring it back.
Well, even when I went to one video a fortnight, I felt liberated doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I can imagine. And also, like, because he was such such a small hobby, really
Yeah.
small hobby, this, and he was a well-known face. If he was still going into shops every week, there'd be a new person going, "Oh, Aaron's Aquarium, when are you coming back? What's going on? What happened?" So
I don't believe he has a tank anymore. I don't believe he has a tank.
that's what I'm saying. He's out of the hobby, and I think, can you even imagine that? Because it just wouldn't work. So.
But
So
look,
does he still have a tank?
if he came back, I can assure him that he would be welcomed with open arms, I'm sure.
Indeed.
By thousands of people.
Tens of
literally, I can imagine that video going, "Welcome back."
Yeah. It would be wicked.
So,
but there you go. So that's what happened to Aaron's Aquarium. And I have deleted a few comments on this live stream. It's not something I'm trying to hide. I'm not trying to keep this as a secret. I'm not biased in his favor. It's just, this is the purpose of this, is to tell you what happened. It's not to go into the ins and outs. When a business fails and there are two people involved, there's going to be disagreements, all that sort of stuff. I don't want to know about that. I'm not interested in the drama behind it. So if I've deleted your comment today, that's why, because it's got nothing to do with why Aaron's Aquarium YouTube channel no longer runs. So I'm just not interested in it.
There you go.
And for the 5th time, I should mention that I was a litigator. So,
Oh, yeah.
Did I mention that? I did, yeah, once or twice. That's
just
fine.
in case anyone threatens you, okay? Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
And I've said nothing. I've said literally nothing, so you can't threaten me.
But that's it. So, because I got a message beforehand from someone who was concerned about this and worrying what I was going to say and asking if Michael had been in my ear, all these sorts of things. That's not what this is about. So,
you haven't spoken to Michael, I don't think. And I last spoke to Michael, I think, in December.
I met him at Coral Freaks. I might have spoken to him on Instagram once or twice after that, but probably not. I don't think I had his number. I messaged him to do that collaboration. He said no. You said no. That was it. I liked him and I would like to be friends with him. But it wasn't meant to be. So, but whatever. Anyway, the point is, that's what happened with Aaron's Aquarium. He's not coming back. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he is, but the chance that
he'll come back tomorrow.
Exactly. I'd love it if he did. But the reality is, as far as I'm aware, and caveat, I've not seen him for years. As far as I'm aware, he doesn't have a tank. And you'd know if he did, because people would comment on it or whatever, and people would see him. He doesn't have a tank. He's not in the hobby, and he's not coming back, I'm afraid. So, in conclusion,
don't ask us again.
Yeah, that is what happened.
Asking us
to Aaron's Aquarium. And if anyone now clicks on now ask that question, I can post this video and say click on 1 hour 32, and the last half hour will tell you. So
there you go.
There you go. And so Steve Webb said, given the thumb, a few people said this. They were hoping he was going to be on the live stream. That wasn't my intention. I didn't mean that to be like a clickbait thing.
I thought that's when I saw you post the thumbnail. Really? I thought that's just the time all three of us were together.
That was my phone. Yeah, there was a photo that someone took on my phone at Coral Freak. So I didn't think people would think that, but actually now you mention it, it's obvious that people would think that. But that would have been cool, and I would have loved to do a one. So
if you're watching, Mike, come back next week.
Exactly. Yeah. But there you go. Yes, I am a litigator. Well, I'm a former litigator. Actually, I'm a non-practicing solicitor. Reef Community Worldwide.
Probably Reef. Ryan turned you down, and look at you two now. Fairy tales do happen.
Exactly. This is how bromances end. So
yeah.
But there we go. So and if he came back and did a video just saying, "Hi guys, I'm back" or something, that would be wicked.
This is why Ryan and Alex are wrong.
Yeah, exactly. But there you go. That's what happened. I don't have anything else to say. Do you have anything else to say, Ryan?
Nope. I think he's happy. I think he's happy.
Yeah.
I don't. Exactly. You never know. But I think he's happy not being in it. That's it.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing. So I would love him to come back for selfish purposes, but if he's happy, I would rather he be happy. And whatever that means, if that means not having a tank, cool. If it means having a tank, cool. As long as he's happy, that's cool. So, Michael, if you did watch this, and if I was you, I would have watched it. Thank you for everything.
Yeah. And I hope you haven't taken this in a negative way, because that was not what this was intended to be.
Exactly, yeah. It's just because people keep asking. But thank you for everything. We miss you, buddy, and we hope you're well.
Yep.
Thank you for watching, guys. And I will see you all next week.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.